Veredas is going to talk about the emergence of systemically important insurers.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. When we start preparing slides for a presentation, we don't know the percentage of the discussions that are before our presentation. We design them as if we don't know that, obviously. And then a day like today, there are two previous presentations on stability, regulation, systemic risk, and I want to be able to update the slides. To take into account all the comments that have been going on in the last few hours. So what I noticed in the first two talks is that there is a bit of skepticism and criticism towards measures of systemic risk, the many measures of systemic risk, the many definitions of systemic risk, the use of different data when computing systemic risk. So, in this paper, we use market data, but in a different way. You will see we give a twist to the market data. We don't use cohort, we don't use MES, we don't use S-risk. However, in one section of the paper that I won't show you now because of lack of time, we'll compare our results with S-risk. We don't use only banks as main papers of systemic risk. We use insurers, you can see, but also the real economy. The real economy makes part of our system. We understand systemic risk as a system of risks. I'll try to convince you, Jerry, that it is a good approach. And we have one definition, but it's not ours. It's from the former president of the ECB. Okay. So, this being said, this is a joint work with Marty Dungi, Matteo Luciani. Marty is a professor in the University of Tasmania, quite far from here, but a fantastic place. And he's also in Cambridge, where he spends a few months per year. Matteo is a postdoc of mine. Right now he's in the job market, so if you have some opening, you can think about him. He has already very good publications like Auction Bulletin, Journal of Applied Econometrics, Journal of Forecasting, among others. Very good publications. Not with me though, but just the Journal of Forecasting. Right. So, there has been a lot of talk about systemic risk so far today. So I will go a little bit fast here. There are three main themes emerging from the great financial crisis. The first one is, of course, systemic risk. That's why we are here. The second are the interlinkages of the financial sector and the real economy, and I will stress a lot at this point in the next 40 minutes. As Jerry mentioned briefly in his presentation, doing a paper on the financial sector without considering the real economy, no, it doesn't go together because, as you know, the core business of the financial sector is to lend, to borrow, and to insure the real economy. So we have to take them into account, we have to put them together. Okay? And within the financial sector, in this paper, I'm going to look more in particular to the role of insurance companies and systemic risk. Indeed, the empirical question of this paper, this is a kind of empirical question. We don't have a theoretical model, no ESG models, no theoretical models. It's all about econometrics, network techniques, not economic theory. And within this framework, we address the paper of whether insurance companies are systemically risky, right? Or if they are as systemically risky as banks. There's a debate that is going on for a few years already on whether insurers are systemically important. Insurers, they say, no, we are not. We are victims of the system. We are not perpetrators of the systemic risk. Insurance business is not systemic. Fair enough. However, insurance companies, they get into businesses that are not traditional life and non-life insurance. And that may be systemic. So, the final answer, so in case that you have to go for a coffee or to the room or just to have a break before I finish, that's the takeaway. The answer is insurers, large insurers, are systemically important, but not as much as banks. So there is a case for discussion on regulating them from a systemic perspective, but they are not as systemic as banks, as large banks at least. Though the literature of systemic risk and banks is huge, it's really big, you know, possibly better than me, there is a small but growing literature on systemic risk and insurance companies. That's very small so far. And this is a quote from a chapter written by Alan Blinder in a review by Dix and Richardson from last year, entitled Modernizing Insurance Regulation. You can read it with me. This quote says, expertise on bank regulation seems to be everywhere, but when you seek expertise on insurance regulation, you get mostly blank stares. This is a serious gap. And indeed, there are some papers working on it, but not many. Some were mentioned already by Sylvain, like the MES approach of Christian and Rob, the VLAB developed by also Christian and Rob and Charlie Richardson. Monica Video et al. With Pellizzone and Agudo and others. They have been also working on this. But as you can see from the dates, this is a very recent literature. Right. If you look at the global, the great or the global financial crisis, we see that other companies but banks were rescued. American International Group is a leading example. And when it comes to regulation, so if we look at what is out there for regulating banks, we see like two types of, or two typologies. The first one is putting banks and insurance under the same regulator. And this is, for instance, the case of the UK. It would be Prudential Regulatory Authority at the Bank of England. Or you can put them separate regulators. Also, New Zealand as a common regulator. I know that because it's my Australian fault. Or you can put them under separate regulators, like it is the case of the EU type of regulation, where you have on one hand the European Banking Authority, and on the other hand the European Insurance Occupational Pension Authority, the EIOPA. In the US it's different. In the US, due to Dodd-Frank, what you have is that first there is a committee that studies whether non-banks can be designated as systemically important. Then, if this committee designates a company as systemically important, then this company is put under regulation by the Federal Reserve and is treated like any other systemically important institution. So far, two have been the cases, plus 1/3 actually. American International Group, General Electric Capital, G Capital, they were both designated as important. The third one is MetLife, but MetLife actually went to court, sued actually the committee on the grounds that they were not systemically important, and the resolution is ongoing. So, who knows what will happen. Okay. So this is a textbook view of insurance and banking. This is the kind of graph that you find in a basic book of financial systems. You have banks on one side, you have insurers on the other side, you have households, corporates, and governments, and the financial markets. I want you to look at the upper half, this one. This is the traditional role of banks and insurers as far as households, corporates, and governments are concerned. Banks, they have loans and deposits, so they transfer credits and money, while insurers, what they do is to transfer risk. These are the two distinct roles of insurers and banks. Okay. What happens actually is that this very nice textbook graph does not really hold in reality for many insurers. And that would be one of the reasons of why they can be systemically important. In fact, in the traditional insurance business, the insurance products are funded by upfront premium. This is a long-term, very steady inflow of money. Insurers normally they don't take deposits, so everything is controlled outflows. That's what the insurers claim for. Sell themselves as not systemically important. Yeah, and there is a bunch of papers about that. They also say, as I mentioned earlier, that they are victims instead of perpetrators of the financial instability, and there are some papers, some from the same authors as the previous ones, about that. However, insurers, they moved away from the core products, from life and non-life insurance, and after the repeal of the asset bill in the US, offering a variety of insurance products. I don't know how it happens here in the UK, but for instance, in Belgium, when I bought a house, I went to the bank. My bank is BNP Paribas, and they gave me the mortgage, good news. And then immediately after they say, okay, this is the insurance for the house. Now it's insurance for an insurer called AG, a small insurer. Yeah. Now, turns out that AG, that was the insurance branch of BNP Paribas in Belgium. And then because of the crisis and the bailout, actually in Belgium, BNP Paribas before was another bank called Fortis. Okay. BNP bought Fortis. And now actually in Belgium it's called BNP Paribas Fortis. Anyway, and the regulator said, you split banking activities and insurance activities. Yet I go to the bank and they offer me insurance products. A CDS, no, is nothing else than insurance. Yeah? Okay. So there is a blur of products offerings between banks and insurers that makes this textbook graph that we saw before maybe not reflecting the reality. It's not such a clear cut to the activities of banks and insurers. Right. So this leads to the development of a study of systemic risk for insurers. There are hundreds of definitions out there, as Jerry mentioned, as Sylvain mentioned, hundreds, literally, hundreds. Basically, every paper of systemic risk has one definition of systemic risk. So we did not want to add one epsilon to that literature. So we read them all that we came across, and we picked one. We picked one definition that we like. And we like for a number of reasons that I will explain in a second. Okay? I will come back to these 3 points. I prefer to go to the definition right away. This is the definition that we use. It was given by the former president of the ECB, Trichet, in a clear, distinguished lecture in Cambridge in 2009. And he defined systemic risk as the threat that developments in the financial system can cause a setting up or breakdown of this system and trigger massive damages. Now, if you remember the definitions that we have seen so far today, you will see that there is nothing new under the sun with this definition. It looks alike to the other definitions. It looks alike. It has the same components. It has a threat component, it has a breakdown component, it has the financial system as a component, and it has the real economy as a component. Yeah. Okay, good. By the way, when we started to write this paper, there is the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and there is the online version of the Merriam-Webster dictionary, which I like a lot. And you can subscribe to the word of the day. So every day you receive in your email the word of the day, which tends to be a very integrated word, very nice, and they explain the historical origins and then some examples from the literature. When we were writing this paper, I received as word of the day systemic risk.
Really?
Yes. And it was so similar to this one. It had all these components: the threat or the surprise, the financial system, the breakdown, the real economy. Yeah. So based on this definition, we are going to build our metric of systemic risk, actually our ranking of systemic risk. Okay. So there are several pieces of this definition that we like, and I'm going to explain you all, okay? But we're going to start with systemic risk itself. Yeah. So I'm going to take upon Jerry's systemic risk. We understand it as a system of risks. Sorry. That's the way we understand it. So, imagine a network. Visualize a network. That's the system. And each node of the network, which will be a firm, is endowed with a level of risk. Okay. That's the beginning. So this is like the framework. Then we come to definition, which starts with threat. Now, threat sounds like a shock, doesn't it? Yeah? A threat is a damage that may or may not happen. We don't know it. Yeah? So that, from an economics point of view, is a shock. Right. So take these risks in the network and extract the shocks. Yeah. So each firm is endowed with shock in its risk. Okay. Now, which firms are these ones? Well, we are talking about the financial system, so we're not going to consider only banks, but all the companies in the financial system. Okay. Brokerage firms, insurers, deposit-taking, investment firms, etc. All. And it also has to do with the real economy. So we're going to incorporate also all the firms of the real economy. So the system is going to be the whole economy, with financials and non-financials, with banks, with insurers, with brokerage firms, investment funds, all this. Okay. And each of these firms of this vast system has a risk and a shock in this risk. Okay. That's the way we see it. I'll come back to that. Indeed, a network of risks, cross-section and time dimension. Cross-section because our system is cross-sectional by definition, and time dimension because we are going to consider a dynamic version of it. So every day, we use daily data, every day we have one network. You know, the system changes from one day to another in a way that you will see in a second. So we model, forget about volatility, I actually don't want to show volatility yet. We model risk connections, okay, in a way that we did in a previous paper entitled Googling Cities, or in the way that Giebel and Yilmaz do as well. So you see the difference with most of the literature. We don't use returns to connect the firms. We use risk to connect the firms. Okay. We don't look at how returns are connected. We understand that risks are connected, not returns. Okay. So from the network perspective, this is an undirected weighted network because each risk is going to be connected with another one, and it's going to be a weighted connection. The way in which the risk of MetLife connects with potential risk is not the same as with, say, Goldman Sachs. Okay? It's not a 0-1, it's not a binary connection, it's a weighted connection. And on the top of that, as you are going to see in a second, on the top of that, we're going to add firm characteristics. So we do not only use market data exclusively, we also use firm characteristics. And we use the three most standard firm characteristics: size, liquidity, and leverage. Could we use more? Yes, we could, of course. I will come back to that later as well.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
in a network, the correlation is weights.
Yeah.
You have some hierarchy. That means the correlation matrix is symmetric, as you know.
Yeah.
So it's the same both directions. But
That's
we
why
know
it's
risk is
undirected.
not like that.
That's why it's undirected.
Yeah.
Now,
But we know risk is directed. So there is the SIFI and the one who's vulnerable.
yeah,
Systemically important,
Yeah.
who's vulnerable.
yeah.
They're
Actually,
directed.
yeah, there the use of daily data is actually an advantage because if you believe that the network should be directed, then what you could use are lagging and leading correlations, and that will give you the errors in the connection. We don't do that. We use contemporaneous correlations. We know that we could put arrows by using lagging and leading. That makes the analysis more complicated. That probably would make a lot of work. Yeah. But it is possible in this framework.
Just clarification, the liquidity, is it balance sheet liquidity or?
Liquidity, yes, it comes from book, just cash and short-term investments divided by the book value. Yeah. There are hundreds of measures of
Yeah,
liquidity,
that's fine.
like leverage. We have to pick one.
Yeah.
We pick that one, which is very standard. Okay.
Sorry, maybe you're going to get to this, but since we're talking about various financial firms, but specifically insurance firms here, what is are you going to focus on a specific channel that emanates from the insurers, or is this going to be more general?
So I will explain later, but I can give you the explanation in a nutshell. Once we have this system, then we're going to use one technique to rank them in terms of importance, meaning the following. We have the system, and then we will see this firm is the most important one because it's the most connected. This firm is the second most important because it's the second most connected. And in this way, we construct a ranking. How do we determine that? We use a PageRank, which is the algorithm that is used by Google to do the ranking when you do a search in Google. Okay. But we don't use PageRank as it is in the textbooks. We do some modifications on it to adapt it to our particular case. Okay. Okay, so a little bit of notation. Let xit be the risk of firm I. We have n firms, so the system is n-dimensional. And what we do first is to extract the shocks. So this is a linear filter, a polynomial, a linear polynomial. And for each firm, we're going to extract the shocks that we denote by mu through this polynomial. Now you may wonder why this. Well, more precisely, this will be our free model, an econometric model to extract the shocks. Okay? And then, once we compute these shocks, then we look at, this will be a J, by the way, typo, sorry. We look at the correlation between the I and the J shock at time t. That's contemporaneous. Do you want to use leading correlations or lagging correlations? Then you put here a minus J, say, or minus K, and then you play with the K, with positive or negative Ks if you want leading or lagging correlations. Yeah. And then you get the errors.
Why don't you condition the extraction of the shock by the other firm component?
Yes, this is univariate.
Yes.
Well, first of all, if we do it multivariate, in our case it will be a 500-dimensional multivariate tensor as well. Yeah, well, you know.
Okay, some shock can directly spread out in the other.
Difficult. Volatilities, we use volatilities. You know, volatilities, they have certain stylized fats that makes them difficult to model, like low memory. That's why we use our FIMA model, a fractional integrated model. Yeah. So a 500-dimensional fractional integrated model, I haven't seen it yet.
Well, you're doing a correlation 2 by 2, so you can do RFIMA model 2 by 2 as well.
Yeah, sure. We could do that, but we don't.
To have a bit more precise measure of the shock. Because you may have correlated shock that occur in univariate.
On the other hand, if we remove all the correlations between shocks, we are left with nothing.
Yeah, but that would be.
Yes. Okay. So that's where the cool part comes. So we understand systemic risk as a system of risk. This is done. We take the first word of the definition of threat to compute the risks, the shocks. This is done. We consider the second piece of the definition, financial system, by including all the financial companies, not only banks. This is done. And also the real economy. This is done too. Right. So given that, a firm is systemically important if its shock in risk, so the mu, is highly connected and with strong transmission channels to other firms. That's the way we would rank this company number one. How do we do it more specifically? Let SKT be the systemic importance of firm K at time t. Sorry, be the systemic importance of firm that ranks in the kth position at time t. Then, its systemic importance is going to be a function of the systemic importance of the other firms. This is a very well-known equation in network theory. We call it eigenvalue centrality measures. And this is applied not only in finance, but in many other areas, like in social sciences, in Facebook, for instance. If you have sons or daughters that are teenagers, they may want to be important in Facebook. How do you become important in Facebook? Well, by being connected with others that are important. And you don't have to go to teenagers on Facebook. Think about academic literature. How do you get your paper quoted? By working with people that are important. Yeah, right, that's the reality. Either you make a super paper alone, or you make okay papers with very important people. And then you get quoted. So you get important too. Yeah, that's the way this works. You get high in the ranking if you connect with other firms that are high in the ranking too. Yeah? And the way this other firm connects with the cave is through this coefficient C that we call it transmission rate. And this transmission rate is a function of the correlations between shocks in risk. Yeah. But we standardize it. So this is the correlation between the shock in risk of firms K and J at type T, standardized by all the correlations, by the sum of all the correlations of firm J across the system. This is to make it relative. Yeah. So if you are connected only with one person, this person, of course, is the most important. If you are connected with a million persons and you add one extra connection, even if this extra new person is important, relative to 1 million, is less important than if you have only 2 or 3 connections. Yeah? So we make it relative.
Just a clarification.
Yeah.
Usually, eigenvectors and charities, you've got it there, is weighted by the maximum eigenvalue of that matrix. So does this J, K, JT term, how does that relate to maximum eigenvalue of that matrix?
Yes, excellent technical question.
I told you because I use a similar.
I don't have the equation here, but you can actually write this system in matrix form. Yeah, and then what you get is that you know C, you don't know S. But S is what you want to know. You want to know the systemic importance. S is actually the eigenvector associated with the largest eigenvalue. And the largest eigenvalue in this system is 1. Why it is 1, and that's a technical explanation, is because when you construct the matrix representation, you get a matrix C. And this is what we call a superstochastic matrix.
Right, because
It's a matrix that
adds up to 1.
the columns or the rows, depending on how you define, sum to 1.
Yeah.
And because of this property, the maximum eigenvalue is 1. Yeah. Yes. Right. So indeed, we can put all the systemic importances for the end firms in a vector, and then we subtract from here those that belong to the financial sector. Right? So ST fin will be the subset of systemic importances that contain the NFIN financial institutions. And then the first thing that we do is to construct an index of systemic risk. Okay? So far, we're not talking about the ranking of institutions. This is an index for the whole sector, which we denoted by GS. It's not called Goldman Sachs. We call it global systemic. I never fancy this name, but okay. We are 3 authors, 2 against 1, so we kept it like this. And this GS index at time t is nothing else, forget about this max, it's nothing else than the sample average of all the systemic importances of the financial institutions. And we add this scaling, and this scaling is in order to have a reference point. Because if we don't add this scaling, we don't have a reference point. So we don't know how big is big, how small is small. We have this scaling, which is the day. So it's the index of the day where the index was the highest. Okay? So if in one particular day this takes value 1, it means that the index of systemic risk of the system was as high as what we observed in the past. If it is above 1, it means that that day the system is more systemic than any other day in the past. Alright, so we subtracted the subset of financial, so we can do it for any other subsector, in particular insurers. So we can subtract the subset of insurers and construct the index for insurance subsector. We can do the same for deposit-taking institutions, for instance. Right, that's one thing. Now we move to the ranking of institutions. Let's go directly to the equation. The left-hand side is the same as before. This part of the right-hand side is the same as before as well. Okay. Now we add this term and this alpha here. Now, first this is a vector of weights that multiplies the firm characteristics, okay, which in our case are, as we said before, size, leverage, and liquidity. Okay. And we attach to each firm characteristic a given weight that I will comment on later. Okay. And then we add this alpha on the front. So the combination of the alpha and the omegas are going to regulate and going to govern how important for the analyst is the network part and the firm characteristic part in order to explain systemic risk. Suppose that you don't like firm characteristics. You don't believe in firm characteristics for explaining systemic risk. All right, then you set the omega to 0. Suppose that you don't like market data. You believe that market data does not help to explain systemic risk, and you set alpha to 0. We don't do either. We set alpha and omega in a
But
particular way.
we want interconnectedness. We
Yes.
may not like market data, but we want to capture interconnectedness.
Yes. Now, one point about that. We use, as I said, equity data, market data. There are many other sources of data. You can think about interbanking data. You can think about derivatives such as CDS, and you can think about any other product in which there are two financial institutions that sign a contract. Fine, but first of all, this data is typically very hard to obtain. Very often, it's just not available. Right? Even the regulators don't have this type of data quite frequently. Yeah. Third, interbanking data. You only get interbanking for banks. Yeah. So what happens with insurers? What happens with investment firms? What happens with the real economy? What do you do? So yes, I agree with you that it would be ideal to combine, and that goes along the lines of your last comment, to combine all these sources of information. But in many cases, if you want to have data for all these firms, you can only rely on market data and in book data. And that's what we
So you said you're using daily data, but 2 and 3 are basically quarterly at best, right?
Yes.
So then basically those two things are just, the only thing that changes in them is the return, right?
Yes. So this is the part that changes every day because it's based on the correlations between shocks in risks that are obtained from the market.
Okay.
This changes every day. And this, which is this vector here, market value, this is market cap. This changes every day.
Yeah, but that's the stock price basically.
Yeah. That's,
So-
yeah. Leverage, we actually use a metric that combines both market data and book data. So it's assets minus liabilities coming from book data plus market value. So this changes every
So
day.
again, that's the stock price? That's the only
Yeah.
thing that changes every day?
Yes, yes. And liquidity is only book based. So this changes every quarter.
But those first two things are basically just the only thing that's changing every day.
In this bit here.
Yeah, it's
But
the
this
price.
changes every day too.
Okay. No, but I mean, you have collinearity problems and all kinds of other things with the stock return and leverage. I mean, it's just because it's inverted somehow. But the only thing that changes on a daily basis
Yeah.
is the stock price, the stock return.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might have to watch for that.
Yeah. Okay. And we never thought about the kind of forcibly control for that. Yeah. Yes.
Just a technical comment for this right here with this, the second term that you have there. I mean, basically, it's just, I mean, from what I understand from this centrality measure,
Yeah.
is that you need that second component right there in order to avoid the degenerate solution, where that if you have some firms that have zero centrality and then you connect to a firm with zero centrality, then regardless of anything else, you will have zero. So people view this second term as this exogenous component that relates to the risk, rather than this endogenous component of the network. So you need it in some way. I thought in most papers they just set them all to equal, so you actually do one better by having a different.
Excellent point. If you read the original paper of Google, This one paper actually, written by Larry Page and Sergey Brin, where they introduced PageRank. They never published it, by the way. It's just a working paper of 12 pages from Stanford Computer Science Department. And they talk about this problem. But this is a problem which is, at least on the web, it happens, but it doesn't happen in lowercase. Now, the problem on the web is what we call dangling nodes. If you're a random surfer and you're surfing right now with your Mac, and you may end up on a website that does not have outgoing links. Assuming that you cannot press the back button, you are stuck. You cannot continue. Yeah? This is what they call a dangling node. And in order to solve this problem technically, they add, what they do, as you said, they add a bit of importance to every website. And this is a constant.
Is this not what you're doing in the second equation?
No. We follow the same logic, but we add importance according to the level of liquidity, leverage, and size.
Yeah, but it's the same idea, isn't it? Like an exogenous importance that you're.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Given by the characteristics of the firm.
Yeah.
Just to add to this technical point, I mean, there is a theorem, the Ferron-Frobenius theorem. Basically, you should have a strongly connected network to begin with. You can't have isolated nodes.
Yeah. This actually, the network of risks, the network of shocks to risk is actually very rich. It's almost fully connected. Yeah. We don't have a single firm that is isolated in a network. Not one, and many are just fully connected. Because we use correlations to connect them.
Yeah, I mean, we have.
So some correlations are very small, very, very small, very close to zero, but they are not zero. And others are very close to 1. Yeah. If we would use a binary connection, 0, 1, then it may be that indeed we have some node that is standing alone. Yeah. All right, so I'm running out of time. Rather. So we write this in the question, which is yes. But we write this equation on the bottom in matrix form. Here it is. That's the matrix representation. And then we solve for systemic importances. And you can see that the solution of S in this system is straightforward. It's given by this equation. Then we subtract from here the financial firms, and we rank them. That's it. So this is straightforward. It's easy to calculate. How many lines of MATLAB code for doing this? The only difficulty is actually to compute the shocks. But there are libraries for time series in MATLAB. Yeah? So you just call a library to compute the Axima model, and then once you have that, how many lines? 10, 15 lines of coding? Yeah? Quick to calculate, is flexible because I don't have time to go into this, but this term is actually very rich. You could add macro variables here, for instance. You could have different firm characteristics for different sectors, for instance, which we can do. Yeah. It's very, very rich, this term. You don't need to optimize, so you don't have to worry about finding a local maximum or a local minimum. Links to the real economy, and you incorporate firm characteristics. So very quickly, yes.
Sorry, but I'm confused. So when you said that you did the Archima model, I thought that was on the volatilities. Somehow you're filtering it in 5 hours or something.
Yeah.
So it's actually on returns itself.
No. This is that's the next slide actually. This will be the realized volatility.
Okay.
And then we filter the realized volatilities with the Archima model to compute the shocks. Yes, so we use daily equity realized volatility for all the constituents of Standard & Poor's 500. Yeah, that's the system for us. Yeah. We compute the daily realized volatilities with 5-minute sample data from January 2003 to December 2011. We compute vanilla realized volatilities, for those of you that know realized volatility literature. We know that vanilla realized volatility, so sum in squared returns over the day, is a very bad estimator of volatilities because it is contaminated by chance. But what is actually bad for many people that are interested in volatilities is actually very good for us because we're interested in risk. And we know that risk has two components, volatilities and jumps. So a bad estimator that contains these two components is actually good for us.
Is it really jumps or is it noise? I mean, that's...
It is noise if you sample at very high frequencies. But there is a kind of common agreement that in well-developed equity markets like New York, a 5-minute sample is enough for removing the market microstructure noise. And then what is left is the jump part and the diffusion of that. And then to make it dynamic, to add the time dimension, we do a rolling window of 1 year and a half. So we do that with 1 year and a half, we do all the analysis, then we move the window 1 day, and so on and so forth until the end. All right. How much time I have? Minus 5 minutes.
No, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So let me go then. These are the indexes for the whole financial sector, for the banking sector, and for the insurance sector. Since I have only 5 minutes, I want to spend time on this and this. Okay. Now, this is what we call the boomerang curve. As I told you, one of my co-authors is Australian. Actually, she did it. She was playing with the results. She was trying to figure out a way to show in a nice way so many results because we have a very high dimensional system here. So she thought about mean variance optimization techniques, like Markowitz type of thing, and then she decided to plot the mean ranking of the institutions against the standard deviation, and that's what she got. It was very cool. It looks like a boomerang. Each point, which can be either an asterisk, a cross or a square, is the pair mean ranking over the sample against the standard deviation of the ranking. Yeah. The X's are deposit-taking institutions or banks, basically. The squares are insurers, and the crosses, here the asterisks, are non-deposit-taking institutions. These are actually very important. Some of these asterisks here are Goldman, American Express, Morgan Stanley. Okay? They are very important. Lehman Brothers is also there. So what we see is that banks, so this is the important area. These are the area of the companies that rank very highly and they don't move out in the ranking. So they stay high up in the ranking all the time. Yeah? So we see that in the very close to this corner, we have typically banks and deposit-taking institutions and investment institutions. So these are those that you find in the Financial Stability Board list of systemically important banks. Yeah. And then we have the second group here, which is less systemic than this one, but it's still very systemic. And these are insurers, the squares. Okay. So this nice graph somehow answers to the question that we addressed in this paper, is are insurers systemically important? And the answer is yes, but not as much as banks. And this is a nice table to conclude that shows the same as the boomerang curve in some way and in a dynamic setting. So we divide every year into periods of 6 months. So first 6 months of 2005, second 6 months of 2005, and so on. Okay. Now, on the top here, you have the traditional banks. So, all the banks that are believed to be systemically important. Bank of America, Citi, Goldman, JP Morgan, Lehman, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. And on the bottom, we have insurers. American International Group, Lowell's, MetLife, Prudential, and Principal Financial Group. Okay, now, it is believed, as you know, that 3 main banks survived the crisis very well. JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. And as you can see in the table, it's red and 1 everywhere. Red and 1 means, by the way, sorry, I didn't explain. Red and 1, it means that during the 6 months, Bank of America was in the top 10 for more than 80% of the times. Sorry, I forgot that. Number 2, it means that, for instance, here, Morgan Stanley was in the top 10-20 more than 80% of the times. Number 3, 20-30, and blank means below. Okay? This is a nice way to aggregate. Going back to the point that we discussed earlier. Yeah? We use daily data to get very good estimations, and then we aggregate in 6 months horizons, because regulators can be more interested in this than looking at the market every day. So, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, once everywhere, very systemic. Lehman, once everywhere, until it disappeared. How about American International Group? Well, 1.5 years earlier of the bailout, our technique detected it as on the very top. Yeah. I can tell you that in July 2007, it was not in the radar of the regulators. How about the other insurers? Well, you can actually see that by the end of the sample, they have become very systemic, very top. First time we got this result, I was doing a visit in the Central Bank of Spain. So I went to the Department of Financial Stability, I saw this table, I said, can you explain me this? No. Can insurers be systemically important? We don't know. Came back to Belgium, I went to the Belgian National Bank. Can you explain me this? No. So at some point, after so many no's, I thought that our technique was not working. But a few months later, the Financial Stability Board released the list of 9 global systemically important insurers. 3 Americans, Prudential, MetLife, and American International Group. So we were happy about it. Okay, so if you want to read more about it, there's a Düsseldorf School of Finance policy briefing entitled The Emergence of Systemically Important Insurers. There's also an opinion piece in French, Assurance et risque systémique. And the original paper, the background paper that explains all these techniques in detail is titled Googling Cities, and it's available at necessary. Thank you. I'm sorry for the delay.
Perhaps you mentioned it, if you did, I apologize. So the idea is that the importance of a particular insurer is essentially depending on how easily or to what extent it's shocking its risk, it was built to other sources to other risk level.
Yeah. That's current characteristics.
Okay. And in your case, you're essentially measuring the risk by realized volatility. So does it need to be realized volatility?
No, you can use any other measure of risk.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use value at risk, for instance. That will go along the lines of COVAR.
Okay.
So you could have the level of value at risk for every company, which also value at risk, by the way, also incorporates volatility and the days, so the 2 components of risk, and then you extract the shocks of value at risk.
Because my next question would have been, have you done so, and if that's the case, how common are the rankings?
No, we haven't. No.
Would you be able to show us to what extent the interconnectedness matters versus the liabilities and other balance sheet characteristics?
No, we don't have that. However, what we have as a robustness check is we remove the real economy from the system. We proceed without the real economy, only with the financial institutions, and we show the results. And what we show is that the system change a lot. Of course, as it happens with all the measures of systemic risk, as it happens with all measures of risk, to say that one measure of risk is better than another is nonsense. Okay? But you can say that some are better than others. To say that one is better than another is nonsense, but you can say that one makes more sense than another. 1 year ago, I was in a conference and I saw a paper where they placed number 1 in the ranking of systemic risk, Disney. I don't know. Is that credible? Well, maybe, yeah. We don't know because we don't observe risk. Yeah? Well, maybe, but I would trust other measures, frankly. Yeah. So.
Can we go back to your plot of the GF itself, the index itself?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I didn't have to explain. Yeah. So this is the financial sector in green. This is the banking sector, dotted, and in black, the insurance. Questions?
Right, so the timing, all of these, I mean, yes, I think the how close is this to the Diebold?
We don't compare with Diebold and Yilmaz. We compare with actually with Brownlees and Engel. We do that comparison, but not with Diebold and Yilmaz. The vertical line here is September 15, 2008. Yeah. This, well, there are lots of bricks here, so I guess you know what this is. This is April 2010. This is when Greece asked for financial help to the IMF for the first time. That's the beginning of the European debt crisis. So, the case of banks, actually deposit-taking institutions, to be more correct, is quite interesting because if you look at the main mortgage index, which is called ADX, you could actually see something very similar to this. The mortgages in the US started to decline at the end of 2006, beginning of 2007. So that here is more or less when actually many banks started to stop giving mortgages to non-AAA rated borrowers. And this very sharp decline that we observe here, we attributed to the top that created, among all the instability that was around, created some stability.
Would you not say, so basically you're saying amongst depository institutions, the height of the systemic risk was around May 2006, and since then things have settled down. I think that's a totally overly optimistic picture of systemic risk.
This is for deposit-taking institutions which do not include firms like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs.
Oh, the top 5 not there.
Those that at that time were not considered from a regulatory perspective as deposit-taking institutions. Yeah. So big players are not there. Are not in this line.
And that was Goldman Sachs, wasn't it? I mean, it
was an
became
investment bank.
a holding company later on.
Later on, yes.
Yeah.
Later on, yeah.
So that was only Goldman Sachs. JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley is also the case?
Morgan Stanley was an investment company.
Company.
It was not under the same regulation as a deposit-taking institution. JP Morgan was a deposit-taking institution, yes. Yeah. Yeah, so you know, what was seen as deposit-taking institutions in 2006 is completely different to today.
Just a comment on the Disney thing. This is one of the critiques. I've seen people also do this in jest, where they use some of these measures and they use non-financials and they start to rank all of the institutions that would be systemically important, and you get these fictional lists of non-financials that really they play no part. And you can do it, like I've seen it done with mutual funds before, where they're not leveraged. And so I mean, where's the systemic risk come from? Where's the channel? And that's what kind of asked you at the beginning, where's this channel for the insurance? I mean, when I think about AIG, for instance, I would think possibly about the counterparty risk that they did by underwriting CDS contracts, and this created some risk within the system. Or in other ways, like something like with this repo type arrangements in securities lending, where AIG was lending out securities, and then with the cash collateral that they were receiving, they were reinvesting it. And then that's not necessarily a dangerous activity to partake in, but when you start to invest in risky products, and then the system starts to go down, you have to unwind those positions, then you're in trouble. And those are two of possibly many channels that insurance companies could add to systemic risk. And if you included those, I mean, would those channels necessarily show up in a measure that you're trying to measure here, or is this something that would maybe happen behind the scenes that your measure would not pick up?
So this makes part of the non-market data that we mentioned before. It would be very useful to introduce this as a firm characteristic, for instance, right? So for American International, you could include the lending to banks as a firm characteristic, which the methodology allows, but we don't do it. But I totally agree with you. Now, something, two more things before we conclude, is that, as you may have noticed, we only include in this analysis firms that are listed in the secondary market. So So you may wonder what happens with many large institutions that are not traded. Yeah, Buffett's company, for instance. Yeah, what do we do with them? Yeah. Well, in that case,
Hedge funds, you mean?
Hedge funds. Hedge funds, yes.
Buffett's.
Yeah. Well, Buffett's actually at the core is an insurance company. Anyway. What do we do with them? Well, in those cases, we can use assets under management as a proxy for prices. But you know, here, the background is price. We need a price. From the price, we compute the return, or from the return, the volatility. From the volatility, the shock. Yeah. So a proxy for price will be assets under management.
My basic question is, when you look at this sort of metric, when should we be concerned? I mean, do you have, is one the point at which, your GS index, when is it high and low? See, if prior to 2006, would we have got worried looking at your thing?
Yeah. So this is why we use this standardization when we compute the average of systemic importance. We add some scaling at the bottom to make it, to know how big is big and how small is small. And the date that we decided to standardize is September 15, 2008. That's why this number here is exactly 1, because that was the most systemic risk of the financial sector, according to our estimations. So, for instance, the banking industry, the deposit-taking industry, before 2008, reflects values higher than 1, meaning that they were way more systemic than the financial system overall. That's one of the conclusions that you can get from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.